now, demonstrators are demanding answers following the arrest of a woman in Manhattan. She was shoved into an unmarked NYPD van, setting off a major clash. Overnight, the woman was released. Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller joins us live from Times Square, where protesters are still out there right now. Derek.
Charlene, good morning. Some elected officials have called that video disturbing. And as you mentioned, right now, we do have some protesters that are lingering here in Times Square. That's after a long night. Protesters cheering as 18-year-old Nikki Stone, a young trans woman there with the backpack, was released from NYPD custody. She's charged with vandalism and criminal mischief, released on a desk appearance ticket, basically a promise that she will show up for her arraignment. But it's this video that people are upset about, showing the activists being thrown into an unmarked van by plainclothes officers. They are part of the warrant squad, and this is really what they do, but typically they're dealing with far more dangerous suspects. Stone's accused of vandalizing police cameras at that Occupy protest downtown. One fellow protester told me it reminded her of the aggressive tactics used by federal officers in Portland.
The people that snatched her didn't look like police officers. They were wearing shorts and sneakers. They pulled her into a minivan. I mean, it looked more like a kidnapping than an arrest. There was no words spoken. They didn't tell her she was under arrest.
Well, police say that's basically the point of the warrant squad, so they don't look like cops. They say that it's standard procedure, and they also say that they were being assaulted with rocks and bottles. Certainly a lot of questions about this, though, that will come up later today.
Protester arrested yesterday by plainclothes police officers. She was rushed into an unmarked vehicle. That video stirring up a lot of controversy. The woman was wanted on several charges of alleged vandalism. Here comes Lindsay Tuckman, joins us from Times Square with more on how all of this unfolded. Lindsay, the woman was released overnight.
That's right, Pat. And this came after a long day of protests. Some of those protests still happening here, ending here in Times Square, and we are expecting more to come today. But now city leaders are demanding answers after one of the protesters yesterday was forced into an unmarked police van. It happened just before 6 last night at 25th Street and 2nd Avenue. A group called Abolition Park, which was holding a Black Lives Matter protest march, say an unmarked van came upon them with no warning, and 18-year-old Nikki Stone was quickly taken inside, which you can see in this video that went viral. Police, however, say the woman was arrested because she was wanted for damaging police cameras during 5 separate incidents in and around City Hall Park. In a tweet, the NYPD says, quote, "When officers from the warrant squad took the woman into custody in a gray NYPD minivan this evening, they were assaulted with rocks and bottles. The warrant squad uses unmarked vehicles to effectively locate wanted suspects." Regardless, though, people are still not comfortable with the way that the arrest was made. Elected officials taking to Twitter to speak out about the incident yesterday. For instance, City Council Speaker Corey Johnson saying it was incredibly disturbing to see, and Public Advocate Jamani Williams saying he is concerned as well by everything that went down. Stone was released this morning, and she was issued a desk appearance ticket. Police say 11 other people were arrested in protests yesterday as well. One of those, for instance, demonstrators from Occupy City Hall held a rally in Columbus Park yesterday, continuing their demands for police reform and racial and economic equality after the clearing of Abolition Park by the NYPD last week. The occupiers say they were not given enough warning and their property was destroyed. Now, again, city leaders and New Yorkers are demanding more answers for why this incident occurred. The video, of course, now going viral and people wanting to know why it had to be done in that way. We haven't heard from the mayor yet on this instance, and we are expecting more protests to happen later today.
Right now, there are growing questions and concerns following this arrest in Manhattan. NYPD officers pulling a protester out of an ongoing demonstration and into an unmarked van. Police say the person was wanted for several crimes. Today, New York's Tracy Strahan's in City Hall Park, where the group's expected to end up later this morning. Tracy, good morning.
Well, Darlene, good morning to you. We have a police presence out here because, as you mentioned, those protesters are set to begin here, and they're still marching through the streets of the city right now, part of a 24-hour protest. That demonstrator was amongst them before that arrest that was caught on tape. I'll take a look for yourself. You can see this happen at 25th Street and 2nd Avenue in Kips Bay. You can see that protester being grabbed by 4 men before being shoved into a minivan last night. Now, according to the NYPD, these were plainclothes police officers wearing NYPD placards. That person, they say, quote, was taken into custody in an unmarked van wanted for damaging police cameras during 5 separate criminal incidents in and around City Hall Park. Now, the arresting officers, they claim, were also assaulted at that point with rocks and bottles. Now, we don't see that in the video, but that's an arrest that added more fuel to the demonstrations.
Actually snatched up in and took a woman that was a part of our march in the van and drove off, which initiated the aggression from our camp.
Now, we do know that that demonstrator was released from police custody shortly after midnight on a desk appearance ticket. When it comes to the police involved, the NYPD says these were their officers and not federal police like we've seen in places like Portland. Again, they're supposed to end that 24-hour protest here at City Hall Park this morning. We're live in City Hall this morning. Tracy Strahan, Today in New York.
After plainclothes officers were seen taking a protester into custody in an unmarked van. Fox 5's Robert Moses is live in Times Square with more on this. Robert, what can you tell us?
Bianca, the demonstrators, or some demonstrators, descended here on Times Square last night. The protester we are talking about was arrested over on the east side, and how police made that arrest this morning is the source of some controversy. This morning, this video of police arresting 18-year-old Nicholas Stone, a transgender woman, is raising a lot of questions. In it, you see plainclothes officers take Stone into custody and put her in an unmarked van yesterday near 2nd Avenue and 25th Street. She was there protesting last week's dismantling of the City Hall Park encampment. Police charged Stone with graffiti and criminal mischief after they say she damaged police cameras in and around City Hall Park this month and last. She was released early this morning and is set to appear in court at a later date. New York Congressman Jerry Nadler tweeted that the video is unacceptable to everyone who respects the constitutional rights this country was founded on. There must be an immediate explanation for this anonymous use of force, he says. City Council Speaker Corey Johnson called it incredibly disturbing. Councilman Brad Lander said with anxiety about what's happening in Portland, the NYPD deploying unmarked vans with plainclothes cops to make street arrests of protesters feels more like provocation than public safety. The NYPD said its warrant squad uses unmarked vehicles to effectively locate suspects. This protester told us she was near where Stone was arrested.
So there was really no moment for preparation. The bike cops came and cut us off on the street and began immediately pushing us back with their bikes and maced the crowd.
The department says as officers took Stone into custody, they were assaulted with rocks and bottles. Police say Stone was one of 12 protesters to be arrested. A GoFundMe page created 4 days ago for Stone, who goes by Nikki and also the nickname Stickers, has raised more than $17,000. The creator says Stone needs rent money. Police tell me that since the protests that started following George Floyd's death, more than 300 NYPD vehicles have been damaged. The price tag for that damage is nearly $1 million. Carrie?
Wow. Robert Moses live for us this morning. Robert, thanks for that update.
This 18-year-old protester had been in the NYPD sights for several weeks now after she was allegedly involved in several incidents of vandalism down in Lower Manhattan. But it's how this undercover operation went down that has some, including members of Congress, calling for an immediate investigation. As police reform protesters continue to march through the streets of Manhattan,
we are from Abolition Plaza. I'm sure everybody has heard of us.
They were suddenly met with the NYPD warrant squad in Kips Bay last night.
As we're marching, an unmarked van that looked like a van came in right in front of us.
An 18-year-old woman, Nikki Stone, was in their sights and arrested without warning. The transgender woman could be seen being wrestled to the ground and then stuffed into the unmarked van before being driven away. Police say they were assaulted with rocks and bottles.
After the police came and maced us all, we have been peacefully protesting. We have not started a riot. We have not hurt no one. We have done nothing wrong. Overnight, Stone celebrated with supporters after being released from custody with a desk appearance ticket for criminal mischief. The encounter raising questions with city politicians this morning. Public advocate Jumaane Williams tweeted he was concerned about what we're seeing, while City Council President Corey Johnson demanded answers and called it incredibly disturbing. According to the NYPD, Stone was wanted for allegedly vandalizing police cameras during the Occupy City Hall sit-in. Police tell me that 11 other people were arrested as part of this whole protest, mostly for resisting. However, one was charged with assaulting a cop after allegedly biting his hand. The mayor's office not releasing a specific statement on this besides standing behind the NYPD at this point, who is defending the arrest. Live here in Kips Bay, I'm Anthony DiLorenzo, Pix 11 News.
Morning for an assault charge. The rest have since been released overnight, including an 18-year-old woman. Now, earlier on this morning, many people were out here in front of the 1st Police Precinct here in Tribeca demanding that she get released, saying that her arrest looked much more like a kidnapping. Overnight, 18-year-old Nikki Stone, who police say they were looking for a while, was released from police custody with a desk appearance ticket after becoming the main focus of this now viral video of her arrest. It's the latest moment sparking outrage and more distrust of the NYPD. Mike Laster of Brooklyn has been protesting all over the country since the death of George Floyd in May. He says Tuesday night, a large group had peacefully set up to march and feed the homeless in a park at 2nd Avenue and 25th Street when police on bikes showed up and things got out of hand.
And they grabbed the transgender woman and they threw her down. I tried to separate myself from the officer and the protest, and he threw his bike on me. I get cut all up on my hands and stuff.
Between the men in plain clothes and the unmarked van, Laster and others say it looked like Stone was being kidnapped. But the NYPD says the homeless teenager was wanted for spray painting the lenses of 6 police cameras during separate criminal incidents in and around City Hall Park. Police also say this squad uses unmarked vehicles to find wanted suspects, adding the arresting officers were assaulted with rocks and bottles.
If you introduce violence to us, we got to reciprocate that violence.
Police say as the night went on, protesters blocked traffic and they took about a dozen people into custody. In the midst of screaming during the tense standoff, you could hear people insisting they weren't violent.
We're peaceful!
While others shouted profanities at police, even daring them to douse them with pepper spray. As for this arrest video, it's not going away quietly. The city council speaker and public advocate are disturbed and concerned, both saying we need answers.
They're getting very aggressive.
Now, protesters will tell you that the whole thing was peaceful, but the NYPD says that 7 of its officers were injured. 4 of them had to go to the hospital for minor injuries. They've since been released. We're live this morning from Tribeca. John Diaz, CBS 2 News.
John, thank you.